They shoved her son in front of the entire school, laughed when he dropped his graduation certificate, and when she stood up, they told her to sit back down. They had no idea who they were talking to. They didn't recognize the posture that made trained veterans in the crowd fall silent. They didn't see the stance of a woman who'd ended real fights without ever raising her voice. But they were about to, because when one of them swung at her, she didn't strike back. She didn't shout. She just leaned down and whispered 5 words to her son. Eyes open. Don't look away. Before we show you what happened next. And the exact moment they all realized who they had just challenged. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because today's story? She didn't fight to win. She fought to teach. The gym at Willow Creek Middle School was packed far beyond capacity. Folding chairs crowded every corner. Blue and gold banners hung above the stage, flickering under old ceiling fans. Parents fanned themselves with programs while younger kids squirmed in laps. Teachers scrambled to fix a projector that refused to cooperate. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cole sat 5 rows back in seat B-17, hands resting calmly in her lap. She wore a simple navy cardigan over a gray tee and jeans. Nothing tactical, no insignia, nothing that hinted at who she really was. Her dark hair was pulled into a low bun. She looked like any other suburban mom. That was intentional. She adjusted her sleeve once, then relaxed. Her phone was off. She'd promised herself this day belonged entirely to her son. Ethan, 14, tall for his age, brown curls that refused to stay flat, sat with his classmates on the gym floor. His clip-on tie kept twisting sideways. His smile was half pride, half nerves. He caught her eye and waved both hands like a little kid, then quickly checked to see if anyone noticed. Sarah smiled and nodded. Ethan was her only child. His father had been gone since Ethan was 3, leaving Sarah balancing deployments and school drop-offs for years. But she'd managed it, and seeing him now, mouthing the words to the class song, she felt something she rarely allowed herself. Steady, quiet pride. She could have sat closer to the front. Other parents had saved her a seat, but she chose the middle row, close enough to see him clearly, far enough not to draw attention if he looked nervous. Today wasn't about her. Still, instinct never fully switched off. Without thinking, she scanned the exits. 3 primary, 2 auxiliary. The usual security guard replaced by a substitute, new face, wrong shoes, no radio. Then she noticed a group of older teens outside the side emergency exit. Not dressed for graduation. Leaning against the wall, laughing too loudly. One of them pointed toward the gym. She didn't react, just filed the information away. Ethan looked for her again. She raised 2 fingers, their silent signal for reassurance. He nodded. No drama, no panic, just calm. A staff member tapped the mic, and the ceremony began. 2 long speeches, early claps, phones held up like sunflowers. Sarah clapped politely, but part of her attention stayed alert. Then she saw the side doors nudge open. Not the main entrance, the old fire doors usually used for equipment. A teacher tried to stop someone, then gave up. The same boys she'd seen earlier walked inside. For total but 2 leading the group. Derek, broad-shouldered, jaw tight, walking like he owned the place. Riley lean, hoodie sleeves pushed up, phone already recording. They didn't sit. They didn't look at the stage. They moved along the wall, scanning the crowd like they were looking for trouble. One bumped an elderly woman's chair and kept walking. Sarah didn't move, but shifted her purse to the floor beside her right boot. Unzipped, hands free. To most people, nothing looked different. But anyone with military training would have seen her body switch into quiet standby mode. Breath low, shoulders loose, senses sharpened. The boys weren't there for a sibling. They were older brothers of a student who'd been barred from walking due to suspensions. They weren't here by accident. They were here to make a point. Riley whispered something to Derek. Both laughed. Riley lifted his phone, filming the staff table, panning toward the students. Ethan didn't notice. He was too busy cheering for his friend crossing the stage. He turned back toward Sarah, grinning. She smiled back, but her eyes were locked on the danger slowly moving behind him. The shift hadn't happened yet. But it would, and when it did, Sarah would be ready. Ethan's row stood as the announcer called their section forward. 38 students began filing toward the stage, shiny shoes squeaking across the gym floor. Sarah leaned slightly for a better view. Ethan was third from the back, tie crooked, curls wild, trying not to smile too big. She almost laughed. For a kid who hated attention, he sure looked ready for the whole gym to watch him walk. Then it happened. From the left side of the gym, near the staff table, Derek stepped forward. It wasn't loud at first, just a break in the flow. A teacher by the diploma table turned, confused. Then Derek shouted, "You think you're just gonna stand up here like nothing happened?" He was staring directly at Mr. Weller, the disciplinary officer. Weller shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Derek took another step. "You suspend my brother 3 days before graduation, and now you're smiling like it didn't matter? Like we're not supposed to say something?" Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Parents twisted in their seats, unsure whether this was part of the ceremony. The principal tried to stand. "Sir, this is not the time. You shut him out for a dress code violation." Derek snapped. "You humiliated him. That's what you all do." Then, with a quick motion, he knocked over the table holding the extra diploma sleeves. Plastic folders scattered across the floor. That broke the room open. Parents stood. Kids gasped. A mother in the front row yanked her daughter into her lap. On the gym floor, Ethan froze halfway up the aisle. His eyes shot to his mother. Sarah was already shifting, weight forward, both feet planted, spine tall. Her hands stayed open, calm, but her eyes tracked every inch of Derek's posture. Hands, stance, breathing. Still, she didn't stand. Not yet. Then Riley stepped in, filming everything as he moved fast. "You all wanted this peaceful and clean," he said, sweeping his phone across the crowd. "But look at this. Look what happens when you mess with people's families." Parents shouted at him to stop recording. A teacher called for security, but the substitute guard near the back wall didn't move. Frozen, wide-eyed, one hand hovering near his radio, Riley pushed past a parent and moved toward the students. Ethan looked back again. Sarah locked eyes with him, didn't gesture, didn't blink, just gave a tiny, steady nod. Ethan swallowed and gripped his empty certificate folder tighter. Derek was pacing now, pointing at the front row of teachers. "You're all cowards. You sit here pretending you care about students. My brother's not even here because of you." A vice principal stepped forward, hand raised. "Sir, please." Derek shoved him with both hands. The man stumbled into a folding chair and crashed to the floor. That was the line. Sarah didn't rise, but her entire body recalculated. Chaos was moving, and chaos always dragged someone into its center. Derek's shout echoed across the gym. "I said no one's leaving till someone explains why my brother got kicked out." A teacher pointed desperately at the frozen security guard, who still hadn't touched his radio. 2 other staff members moved to shield the student speaker behind them. On the gym floor, Riley prowled between rows, camera raised. Parents told him to stop. A father stepped forward. Riley shoved a phone in his face. "You want to be in the video too? Go ahead," Riley said, laughing as he backed toward the students' seating. Fear replaced confusion. Students froze. Teachers leaned together, whispering plans. A baby cried somewhere near the bleachers. Derek kicked over a stack of programs. Paper scattered across the floor like startled birds. "Where's Weller?" he barked. "You hiding behind that table like the coward you are?" In the center aisle, Ethan hesitated, half-turned toward the stage, half-turned toward his mother, torn between moving forward or running back. Ethan looked left, then right. Another student whispered, "What's happening?" Ethan stepped sideways to make room. That was the mistake. Derek spun toward him, eyes locking like he'd just been challenged. "You got something to say?" Derek barked. Ethan blinked. "No, You think you're better than my brother?" Derek snarled, stepping closer. "You think this ceremony is just about you and your little folder?" Ethan stepped back, but Derek shoved him hard on the shoulder. Not for balance, but to humiliate. Ethan stumbled. His certificate folder slipped from his hands, spreading across the gym floor. One corner folded under his dress shoe. The entire gym went silent. Every parent, teacher, and student froze. Everyone knew instinctively that a line had just been crossed. Ethan stood stiff, eyes wide, not hurt, just stunned. Then he turned and saw his mother stand. Sarah Cole rose slowly, no panic, no rush, but with a stillness so controlled that three parents instinctively shifted aside without knowing why. Her hands stayed relaxed at her sides, her feet planted evenly, her chin level, eyes locked on her son. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. He recognized that expression. Not anger, not fear, presence. The same unshakable calm she had the day a truck swerved into their lane when he was 8. No yelling, just control. Sarah stepped into the aisle, deliberate and centered. Derek puffed his chest. Riley swung his phone toward her face, filming. "Sit back down, lady." Riley smirked. "We're not talking to you." She didn't answer. She didn't blink. She simply stepped between them and her son. Ethan stared at her back, straight, calm, unmoving, like a wall, and the entire room fell into silence. Not because the conflict was over, but because the line had officially been drawn. For a few heartbeats, nobody moved. Derek stood 3 feet from Sarah, chest rising fast, confused why she wasn't flinching. Riley lowered his phone a bit, unsure if he should keep recording. The boys behind them muttered, but even they weren't laughing anymore. Ethan stayed behind his mother by one small step, and realized she hadn't told him to move. She had moved for him. Derek's eyes flicked to Ethan, then back to Sarah. "Get out of the way," he demanded. Sarah didn't react, didn't raise her voice, didn't clench a fist. She simply stood, grounded, steady, eyes level. Derek's nostrils flared. "You deaf or something?" He lunged, not with a punch, but with that same shove meant to embarrass. He swung his arm wide, aiming to push her off balance. But this time his forearm hit the side of her face. Not hard, but real. The smack echoed through the gym. Gasps erupted. A woman clutched her chest. A teacher dropped her clipboard. A student whispered, "Did he just?" The gym held its breath. "Mom!" Ethan's voice cracked the silence. Sarah didn't turn. The side of her face was already pinkening where she'd been hit. But her shoulders didn't move. Her breathing stayed steady. Her expression remained calm. Without looking away from Derek, she reached one hand back, gently placed it on Ethan's chest, and guided him behind her. "Behind me," she whispered, soft, but final. The boys laughed again, nervous and forced. "See," Riley said, raising his phone. "Didn't even touch him, and she's acting like it's the end of the world." Derek chuckled. "Didn't mean to tap her so hard. Guess some people bruise easy." He tried to play it off, brushing at his hoodie. But no one in the gym was laughing anymore. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cole tilted her head just a degree, eyes sweeping the gym. She checked the exits, the wall-mounted AED, and the woman behind the boys who was quietly crying while holding her son. She wasn't angry, she was assessing. And that was what scared everyone watching. A father pulled his daughter closer. A man in an Air Force cap stood up, arms crossed, no longer watching the boys but watching her. No weapons, no shouting. Yet the entire gym felt the shift. Something invisible but unmistakably dangerous. Moments before, there had been noise, laughter, bravado. Now everything froze. After the slap, before the response, Sarah stood planted between her son Ethan and the 2 teens who didn't yet realize the mistake they'd made. Her shoulders dropped an inch. Her elbows loosened, palms open, controlled breath. Not dramatic, just deliberate. Anyone who had ever been around real violence or real training recognized the change instantly. This wasn't rage. This wasn't adrenaline. This was control. Riley lowered his phone. The smirk drained from his face. Derek muttered, "What are you even gonna do, lady?" But there was less confidence in it now. On the bleachers, the Air Force veteran leaned forward, studying Sarah's stance. On the floor, A gym teacher subtly stepped in front of the younger kids, shielding them without knowing why. Only that something told her to. Near the stage, the principal whispered urgently to a staff member, who slipped out the side door to call the front office again. Ethan hadn't moved, but his breathing changed, quick, shallow. He looked at the back of his mother's neck, following the line of her spine to how her feet had shifted. He knew that posture. Not violence, readiness. Sarah didn't blink. She wasn't bracing for a fight. She was waiting for someone to make one more mistake. A father whispered, "She's trained." His wife answered, "Yeah, that's not civilian posture." "Mom," Ethan whispered. Her fingers brushed back toward him, just a tiny cue. He stepped behind her, not out of fear, but because he understood this had shifted far beyond mom versus bullies. Riley swallowed. "You're acting like a soldier." Sarah finally spoke, but not to him, to Ethan. "Eyes open. Don't look away." It wasn't a threat. It was permission. At the back of the gym, the substitute security guard finally stepped forward, reaching for his radio. Too late. Sarah didn't need backup. She only needed movement. Derek moved first, stepping in like he planned to grab her arm. Quick, entitled. A mistake. Sarah pivoted. Her left foot slid 6 inches. "Wait low." She caught his wrist. Not yanking, not twisting, just redirecting his own momentum. His balance vanished and he hit the floor hard. Not slammed, not hurt, just decisively grounded. A fall that said one thing clearly: this was training. A gasp rippled across the gym. Riley panicked and swung a metal folding chair. Wrong grip, wrong angle, wrong opponent. Sarah stepped into the arc, intercepted the chair with her forearm, rolled it inward, and twisted his wrist. The chair clattered. Riley fell back into empty seats, humiliation hitting him harder than the landing. The gym fell silent again, this time in awe. Ethan watched wide-eyed. He'd never seen his mother move like that. She didn't lunge or yell. She moved with precise, economical calm. A third teen stepped toward her, maybe 17, then froze the moment Sarah turned her head. She didn't raise a hand, just locked eyes. That was enough. "Nah, man, I'm out," he muttered and backed away. On the floor, Derek groaned, unable to sit up. Riley held his ribs, not injured, just ashamed. Teachers scrambled, ushering kids away, helping the vice principal, trying to restore order. And every adult realized they had just witnessed something far beyond self-defense. This was restraint, authority, dominance wrapped in perfect discipline. Ethan stepped forward, voice shaking. "Mom, are you okay?" Sarah turned, touched his shoulder. "I'm fine. You're safe. That's what matters." Then she scanned the room again, slow, steady, eyes tracking every teen, every remaining threat, fully in control, fully calm. There were no threats left. Someone finally whispered what everyone else was already thinking. That wasn't self-taught. That was SEAL movement. And just like that, the energy shifted. No laughter, no excuses. The truth landed heavier than any punch. She hadn't fought them. She had ended it. The gym stayed silent, not from fear, but from recalibrating everything they thought they knew about her. Riley sat half-slumped on the floor, hand on his elbow, blinking like someone realizing the rules were nothing like he assumed. Derek groaned, trying to sit up, but no longer acting tough. The third teen had already slipped out the side door, and in the center of it all stood Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cole, composed, steady presence, not performance. A middle-aged man rose from the 5th row, the faded Air Force insignia still visible on his polo. He didn't approach, but his voice carried with the certainty only military men use when they finally understand the situation. "That's SEAL work," he said quietly. Murmurs spread. "She didn't even swing. She dropped him like it was nothing. Did you see the control?" A woman with a school ID stepped forward, hands trembling over her clipboard. "Ma'am, are you trained in?" Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she knelt beside Ethan, who was still clutching his crumpled certificate folder. His eyes darted from the crowd back to her. She checked his face first. No bruising, just shock and confusion trying to process the moment. "Did he hurt you?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "He just shoved me. I dropped the folder." She nodded. "Good. That's nothing we can't fix." As she stood, a Marine Corps veteran crossed the floor and stopped beside her. "We've got kids here," he said simply. "Thank you for keeping them safe." Sarah returned the nod, quiet, unshowy. Finally, Derek lifted his head and asked the question he should have started with. What are you?" She looked at him, calm, clear. "A mother." From the back, the Air Force vet added, louder now, "Yeah, and something else too." No one disagreed. They didn't need the resume. They'd seen everything they needed in how she moved, restrained, and controlled the room without raising her voice. This wasn't training. This was identity. Red and blue lights flickered through the frosted glass near the main office. No sirens, just quiet sweeping lights. 2 officers entered the gym, 1 male, 1 female, steady, calm, professional. "Who called it in?" the male officer asked. Mr. Weller, the disciplinarian, raised his hand. His collar was unbuttoned, but he stood tall. "We had an altercation. Several non-students entered without clearance and made physical contact with staff and students." "Injuries?" the female officer asked. Weller gestured at Derek and Riley, still on the floor. Then he motioned toward Sarah. "And this woman de-escalated the entire situation. Alone." The officers approached. Teachers guided the youngest students out a side door. One officer gestured to a folding chair. "Ma'am, if we could speak with you." Sarah nodded and followed protocol, sitting with Ethan beside her. He held his certificate folder tightly, the crease still bent where it had fallen. They asked for her name. She handed over her ID. The male officer blinked when he read it. "Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cole, retired," she confirmed. "Naval Special Warfare, currently on leave." The female officer glanced at the boys on the floor and said, "That explains a lot." Riley tried one last burst of indignation. "She never even said who she was. She just jumped us." Before the officers could reply, a parent shouted, "She didn't jump anyone. We all saw it. They shoved her kid. Slapped her. She warned them twice." Another mother added, "She didn't attack. She protected the children." 3 more parents raised their hands to offer statements. The Air Force vet approached and handed the officers a short bullet point report he'd written on the back of the ceremony program. "I know what I'm looking at," he said. A teacher handed over footage sent from a parent's phone, showing the shove, the slap, and Sarah's measured takedowns, each controlled and non-excessive. Finally, the officer turned to Sarah. "Do you want to press charges?" Sarah looked at Ethan, his breathing steady now, and shook her head. "No, I don't need charges. I need someone to explain to those boys what could have happened if this had been someone without training or without restraint." Both officers paused. The female officer nodded. "Understood." As they turned to the teens, Riley stayed silent. Derek stared at the ground. They hadn't been defeated. They'd been spared. The ceremony resumed slowly, like a heartbeat finding rhythm after trauma. The principal spoke softly. No microphone. Just a quiet reminder that life continues. Students were called up one by one. Ethan's name came near the end. He walked the stage with scuffed shoes, his folder now smoothed out by his mother minutes earlier. There wasn't applause, just a respectful silence. When he stepped down, Sarah was already waiting by the exit. Present, steady, no spotlight needed. They walked out together into the evening. Parents murmured by cars. Police lights were off now. A medic checked Derek's wrist. Someone cried near the flagpole. They crossed the lot without speaking. A teacher nodded respectfully. A father stepped aside with his daughter. At the car, Ethan finally broke the silence. "You didn't fight for yourself," he said softly. "You fought for me." Sarah paused at the passenger door. "I always will." He hesitated. "Were you really a Navy SEAL?" She nodded. "I was." "For how long?" "A while." He thought for a moment. So you've done stuff like that before? She unlocked the doors with a quiet chirp. I've done what needed doing. That's different. As they sat inside, he held the folder like it weighed more than paper. You didn't want to hurt them, did you? No, she said. Then why do it like that? She looked at him. Because if I'd hurt them, they'd only remember the pain. But now they'll remember they were stopped without being destroyed. And maybe that changes something. Ethan nodded once. Before pulling out, Sarah saw the Marine Corps veteran standing by the walkway, hands folded, giving her a small, respectful nod. She returned it and drove away. Quiet, uncelebrated, unshaken. Just a mother and her son heading home. Stronger than when they arrived. Would you have stayed calm if someone laid hands on your child in the middle of their own graduation? Do you think Lieutenant Commander Sarah Cole showed too much restraint, or exactly the right amount? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this mission reminded you what real strength looks like, go ahead and tap that like button, hit subscribe, and make sure the bell icon is turned on so you never miss a story. Share this video with someone who still thinks silence means surrender. And while you're here, your next mission is already on the screen. I'll see you tomorrow.